Bonjour, ici Crypto, j'espère que vous allez bien aujourd'hui, mercredi 13 décembre. Alors pour aujourd'hui, je vais faire une vidéo spéciale. Je vais faire écouter une entrevue avec ONAFRIQ. Qu'est-ce qui s'est passé à Ripple SWELL, à Dubaï, il n'y a pas longtemps. Très important à écouter si vous êtes investisseur et que vous voulez avoir un vrai cas d'utilisation expliqué. Alors, je vous conseille fortement d'écouter ça. Il y en a qui vont abandonner après quelques minutes. C'est vous qui vous êtes le pire. Parce que les investisseurs qui ne savent pas dans quoi ils s'embarquent, c'est eux qui lâchent les premiers et c'est eux les faibles. Alors, ceux qui vont écouter la vidéo jusqu'à la fin, c'est eux qui, plus tard, vont avoir la récompense parce qu'ils vont avoir fait les efforts d'avoir fait leur recherche et moi, je vous facilite ça. Alors, j'espère que vous allez apprécier cette vidéo-là. Très, très cool vidéo à visionner au complet. Avant tout, juste pour vous dire que le sondage d'hier, la question suivante était « Bientôt, le dollar américain ne sera plus la monnaie de réserve mondiale selon David Schwartz, le XRP pourrait l'être. Vrai, 57%, faux, 25%, je ne sais pas, 18%. Alors, c'est parti pour l'entrevue. Vous allez être impressionnés de voir qu'est-ce qui se passe en Afrique avec Ripple. C'est parti, let's go!
I'm excited to kick off what is day 2 of SWELL with what is...
Ah oui, et c'est en anglais. Alors, s'il vous plaît, soyez pas déçus. C'est comme ça que ça marche. Je peux pas traduire une vidéo de 23 minutes en français avec le bot, ça fonctionne pas. Let's go! On décolle ça immédiatement. Ça, c'est Eric Van Mittenberg, le SVP chez Ripple. À tantôt!
This teed up to, I think, a really fascinating conversation. We're privileged to have with us a true expert in African payments, Dare Okudju. Dare is the founder and CEO of ONAFRIQ, and they are a key partner of Ripple's in Africa. Specifically, they receive payments from Ripple senders around the world on behalf of their customers. Now, a few quick facts about ONAFRIQ. It's a Pan-African fintech company that operates the largest digital payments hub in the continent. It also connects over 500 million mobile wallets and over 200 million bank accounts in 40 countries across Africa. I mean, those numbers are phenomenal, and it's a testament to what Dare and his team have built over the last several years. So the other thing that is of note is that ONAFRIQ wasn't ONAFRIQ 2 weeks ago. They went by a different name, specifically MFS Africa. And I'm sure during the course of our conversation, we'll get into that a little bit more. So enough for me. Dare, again, thank you so much for being here. He's been traveling around the world, and we're honored that he was able to carve out a little bit of time. So I'd like to start off kind of at the beginning. Origin story. Tell us a little bit about your background, but what caused you to found ONAFRIQ some 13 years ago?
Thanks, Eric. So I'm originally from Benin, in West Africa, born and raised. And I left Benin in '94, initially to go to Morocco. I spent a couple of years in Morocco, undergrad, I would say. Then I moved to France. I trained as a telecom engineer. And this is late 90s now. And, like anybody else who could spell internet back then, I had to try startup. And that happened to be in the US and work on ADSL modems, trying to program that. Didn't quite stay in the US, went back to France, worked for PricewaterhouseCoopers, moved around Europe, North Africa a little bit, until I moved to South Africa to work for MTN. So in 30 years or so living Benin, like most migrants, there were two constants in my life, right? Calling home and sending money home. And the calling home got so much better over the years. We moved from calling cards, and I'm sure the migrants in the room old enough will remember you have to buy the one specifically for your country. So sometimes you say Benin and they sell you Bangladesh, and that's not good because your minutes finish quickly. We moved from that to, at some point there was Skype, and all the way to now, we send you a link, you click, and you can talk.
Right.
And you don't even need to ask me where it is, And in the room, if I throw a number on the screen, nobody's going to ask me if that's Burundi or Peru or Bangladesh. We just dial, and we take it for granted that it will work. So what caused me to set up ONAFRIQ was, why is that not the same for money? Why can we make so much progress on how easy it is for all of us to call and communicate, to the point that we all take it for granted that we can always do it, yet we cannot take it for granted that we can always make a payment. So our mission from the beginning has been to just replicate what has happened in the communication world for money. That's how MFS Africa, now ONAFRIQ, was born.
That's fantastic. And actually, there's some common philosophy in terms of how Ripple thinks about the world and how we can help out as well. So that's where you started. Obviously, the last 13 years have been quite a journey, and the success is evidenced by the numbers I shared earlier, truly impressive. Maybe give a little bit more facts and figures about ONAFRIQ, and I'd love also if you could touch on the branding change. What motivated moving from MFS Africa to ONAFRIQ?
Indeed. So basically, the original idea was just to really use the telecommunication mental model to build a network of networks in Africa. So immediately prior to founding the company, I was leading MTN Mobile Money. MTN is one of the largest telecom network in Africa and Middle East. And I was in charge of building out what is now MTN Mobile Money. So I was seeing firsthand closed loop mobile-based payment schemes develop across Africa. And our idea was that we will, this will be so much more useful to everybody involved if they were interoperable. If I could pick up my phone on one network in country A and transmit, send money to another network in country B. So we initially started just focusing on that. And along three kind of layers, the messaging layer, the APIs and all the communication, the compliance layer, and then the settlement layer. For the first 7 years, that's really all we did. And the goal was not to die, that's it. Just keep going. And eventually, like in every good network business, and Ripple will know a lot about this, at some point, the wheels start turning. And there is kind of some sort of momentum. And I think for us, that took almost 7 years. And at that time, we reached about, I would say, around 120 million wallets in about 10 countries that we connected to. And from there on, it became possible, and the network became interesting to other type of players. So from just serving mobile money operators, I would say, we became interesting to money transfer operators who were then looking for a single entry point to reach more people across the continent. We became interesting for enterprises on the continent and outside of the continent that were looking for, simple collection methods across multiple markets, or way to expand from one market to the other. And we became interesting to banks as well, financial institutions, who then could rely on our rails to reach clients and groups that were previously not reachable. By 2020, we felt that there were we were on our way really to become an important infrastructure in Africa that will connect Africans to each other and to African businesses. But remember, the mission at the beginning was to just being able to call everyone. Right. So for us, it became important that this network can also connect to most relevant networks outside of Africa. That took us, one of the first thing is the card rails that existed for a while, and we got into that for acquisition. That took us to the US. That took us to the OG MFS, so actually the company that owned the trademark is Massachusetts Financial Services out of the US. So that's what prompted the name change, and I'll come back to that. But in that quest of relevant networks outside of Africa, the other one was Ripple. And that's how our journey with Ripple started, because we believe around the world, obviously once you've done the card rails and you do some specific networks like China, that we believe the payment network that will be relevant there will be specific to China, and we've done some work there. We think there will also be some relevant network that will be born out of the internet, the whole crypto movement. And for us, it was important that we pick carefully, not what is shiny necessarily or hype today, but what will be there in 10 years, who is putting in the work to be relevant not just today, but for the next 100 years. And I think, in our opinion, Ripple is in that category. That's why we partner with you. Then the name itself, is not many times in life that you get the chance to think about what your name should be.
Right.
You know, none of us actually had that luxury. So initially, when I started in South Africa, it was, for me, it wasn't an important thing. So I went very practical. Mobile financial services for Africa. That was as easy. And when the time came, which we couldn't go by that name anymore, then I went a little bit deeper, and we went back a little bit more. In my culture, I'm Yoruba from Benin, and in our culture, when a child is born, actually, you don't just name it. You actually wait and reflect, because there is a belief that the name can influence destiny. That it's a prophecy, actually, what you call your child. You're setting him or her into a certain direction. So it became important for us to reflect that if we get that chance to make it a prophecy, what our name should be, what that should be. And then we choose the combination of Ona, which means pathways or roads in Yoruba, which is really what we're doing. It's about creating pathways from and to every African and every African businesses and Africa. And I'm Francophone, from Benin, so I think we'll always have to explain ourselves. So we thought, instead of saying ONAFRIQ, let's say ONAFRIQ, with a little bit of clin d'oeil to the Francophones. But it was also the IQ, because we think the new Africa is going to rise through being smart and being smart about technology. So since we got the opportunity to choose our name and kind of make a prophecy, we thought we should pick something that will reflect what we want to be, and that's ONAFRIQ.
This is a great story. Thank you for sharing.
Thank you.
So switching gears just slightly, yesterday we made an announcement, sort of expanding the relationship between ONAFRIQ and Ripple. Specifically, we are now enabling senders from around the world, from the Middle East people, sender based here in the Middle East, UK, also
Australia.
In Australia. And they're going to take advantage of crypto-enabled cross-border payments sending into ONAFRIQ's network, which is fantastic. We're excited about the potential of that. You shared, Dare, a little bit about why you chose Ripple, and we're thankful you saw that in us. But I'm sure also the decision to embrace the crypto-enabled payments was also something you had to kind of deliberate and think through. What ultimately got you comfortable with going in that direction?
Yeah, no, you're right, and this, I mean, we made this decision many years ago, right? When it wasn't this clear what path to take. But the starting point is that if you go in any city in Africa and pick up a random person and ask them, what is the number one characteristic of payment? They will tell you it's instant. That's what mobile money has done across the continent. People just take it for granted that payment is instant, and it doesn't matter whether it's domestic or cross-border. So mobile money, which is where really digital payment started in Africa, is instant native. What we've done as MFS Africa was to take that instant capability cross-border. When we move money between Kenya and Uganda, we go through those two layers, as I mentioned, the messaging layer, the compliance layer, and we have to do all of this and the settlement for the end user in less than 45 seconds. If it takes 5 minutes, the sender is going to call. If it takes an hour, he is going to come. Not just call. He doesn't believe that the money was sent. So that we were able to do that at the level of Africa, and we continue to do that. We process hundreds of thousands of these transactions every day. It was important that we are able to do that with the world. So when we connect to the rest of the world, when I talk about this relevant payment network outside of Africa, that instant capability was absolutely crucial. And I think that's at the heart of it. I think that's what crypto enabled. I think that's the ability. I mean, there are other things, but the real beauty is the fact that you can actually indeed move value instantly around the world. So that was the key element for us to say we need this to go into the crypto rails, and then it was a matter of which crypto rails to pick.
Yeah, makes sense. So maybe on the topic of crypto, the perspectives on crypto, its role, how it's used, vary from region to region. Obviously, Africa is a very, very big continent. But I'd love to get your perspective, being so deep in that part of the world. How do people view crypto? How are people using crypto, maybe in ways different than they are in other parts of the world?
Yeah, and I mean, it will be hard to generalize, right? But if we just do big groups and over time, I think that ability to do instant has what brought a lot of people in anyway at the beginning. And you have to remember that the instant compensate for low trust. If I'm in a low trust environment, then I don't have to actually trust you. If it's instant,
right away.
we can just do transaction. And if you think about cross-border trade across Africa, so again, a lot of it is within Africa and is growing, but a lot of it, if you say Africa overall, China, it's a big one. Mm-hmm. Turkey is becoming a bigger one. India, Brazil, and that's kind of the South, the BRICS. The US, Europe, Amsterdam, has always been there. So if you take, a restaurant in Lagos, they need to import the kitchen equipment. That's come from Germany. If you take a clinic in Lusaka, they need to import the medical equipment. That will come from the US, from China, or sometime from Amsterdam. So you have those trade flows that were always there. And I think initially the adoption of crypto has been around facilitating those payments in a low trust environment. Then that got compounded by the lack of dollars in the system and the scarcity of dollars. So, you go and queue if you are in Mozambique and you want to pay your supplier outside of Mozambique. Well, you go and queue for dollars like everybody else, and that could be like months. And sometimes you have real business that you have to actually build for. So that was the first, I would say, the adoption. But it had a problem around the volatility. There were a lot of things said about crypto in Africa, people trading a lot of crypto. It wasn't because people wanted to speculate about Bitcoin going up or down. Mm-hmm. It was about that ability to just make cross-border payment. And that volatility caused a lot of people to retreat. And I think but at the same time, the advance of things like stablecoin, which takes away that volatility, and you don't need to worry about whether this value is also helping again. And we're seeing a lot of that use now in stablecoin use is growing a lot. Last but not least is we are in hyperinflation environment. I mean, for the first time, countries like the US, Europe are talking about inflation. Yeah. In Africa, we've been talking about inflation for a very long time. So people know this. I mean, when we talk about inflation, we talk 20%, 40%, more than 100% in some markets. And again, these are proving to be good tools to shield yourself against that. So even if you're going to lose 20% on your XRP or the equivalent, it's still better than to lose 100% or 80%, just keeping your money. So we are also seeing that use when it's possible for people and businesses to simply shield themselves and find an easy way. It's not easy for you to go and buy US dollar or euro, but technology has made it possible for you today to buy crypto and just, in a few clicks, and that is also driving. So I would say instant capability, cross-border trade, and protection around hyperinflation is what is driving really usage of crypto across Africa. Yeah,
it's great to see that these are real-world use cases. It's not speculation as much as we see in other parts of the world, and I think obviously we at Ripple believe that trend will continue, and there's use cases that are super powerful that will continue to blossom. We have limited time. There's so many questions. I want to tap into your deep knowledge of Africa. Obviously, Africa's been on the forefront. A lot of the payments advancements, certainly mobile payments, have been, with M-Pesa and Kenya, people are familiar with that. But it's not only about mobile payments, right? There's omnichannel opportunities. And I don't know if you can just share at a high level with us kind of some of the payment dynamics that you see in Africa and any trend lines you think that are especially notable.
I think, it's kind of layers, right? So I would say the same effect that the railroads have had on trade and movement of people in England, mobile money probably have multiple of that across multiple markets in Africa. And I'll give you a few examples. Obviously, the first is that people are visible now. Like just having an account linked to your phone number and a digital trail makes you actually visible. Visible to other type of services and providers and ability. So that in itself, and we talk about empowerment and you know, financial inclusion, and sometimes it looks very vague, but it is actually real. Like hundreds of millions of people are now visible because there is a phone number and there is an account and there's digital history attached to that. That's layer zeros. And the money is digital, and that means it's accessible in theory to the rest of the world and back. If you think about it, you know, I would say even if we forget about inequality, like $100 in New York, $100 in Conakry, I would argue before mobile money, the $100 in New York is actually better than the $100 in Conakry, because what are you going to do with it, really? But now, with mobile money, that $100 in mobile money is available to the rest of the world. You could actually trade with someone in Hong Kong, in Buenos Aires, in Moscow, maybe not in Moscow, in Paris, and so on and so forth. So I think that's kind of layer one that mobile money has done. But the other thing it has done is create opportunity for other businesses to be built on it. And we have seen, whether it's e-commerce, other fintechs, lending, insurance, and we have seen a whole world of companies that are now being built because that first layer is there. But the beauty of it is also because this is more or less a standard, well understood, and in part through the work of companies like ONAFRIQ that have aggregated this, it becomes possible for someone with an idea in Zambia, 12 million people, really small market, to actually build something that will be appealing to 1 billion people, the whole of Africa, and maybe beyond. Because now by integrating those networks through an ONAFRIQ network, you make it possible for that idea that was born in Lusaka to be appealing to someone in Monrovia. Now, through what we've done now with Ripple, that can also be appealing to someone in Seoul, can be appealing to someone in Melbourne. And that, for me, is the power of what we're trying to do, that you can put that layer of infrastructure, which may look like a lot of work for not a lot of money initially, but what it is doing is actually creating opportunity. What it's doing is merging market. And when you're from a small country like Benin, Benin is also 10 million people, that you are righting a wrong. Like, you know, you don't choose where you're born. If you're born in Benin, your market is too small. But if we get this right, your market does not need to be Benin anymore. You can actually build something in Benin that will be appealing to the whole world. And as long as you're able to pay and get paid, you get a chance to compete with same idea born in the US.
That's powerful. I love that.
Thank you.
Okay, we have a few more minutes. I guess I want to look to the future a little bit. So a lot of change, a lot of exciting things happening for ONAFRIQ. As you look to 2024, what are you most excited about? What's on the horizon, and what are you going to be focused on in the new year?
I think we're still in a difficult macro environment, you know, for many reasons, and I don't expect that to change in 2024. Having said that, I'm excited for the possibilities that we can create. I think, you know, 2 years ago, we made an acquisition in Nigeria where we acquired a network of about 90,000 offline merchants using POS, with the view to grow that to about 1 million and connect that to our network. That, you know, it becomes possible for those merchants to service people coming from anywhere in Africa, or to do that remotely, and for that matter, to the world. I think Nigeria is going through a lot of trouble now, new regime, and we are, you know, the Naira and all that. But I'm actually quite excited to see what that will do. That making it Nigeria completely part of our network and being completely open to the world. Now, there's still some discussion around how crypto will play out there, but I'm certainly excited about that. And of course, I'm excited about, you know, our own partnership. I think it's just the beginning, and I think that idea of making money move instantly, and you know, this is I haven't been in Dubai for 7 years until I came yesterday, and the first thing that became clear to me is how much more Africans are here. You know, from the airport, through the hotel, the workers, it wasn't like this 7 years ago. That tells me there will be demand to move money from here. And that gets me more excited, because now we have possibility to do that for our partners here, and the current one and the future one, and their ability to continue to, as we say in MFS Africa, making borders matter less. I think we'll do more of that next year.
Yeah, no, that's super exciting. We are, as I said, thrilled about this partnership. We are in the early stages, but we had a quick catch up this morning, and the list of ideas and things we can work on together is really motivating, and I think it bodes well for not only our companies but our customers as well. I wish we had more time, Dare, but I see the clock counting down. Please, a big hand for Dare for joining us today, and we appreciate you being part of the.
Voilà, alors bravo à tous ceux qui se sont rendus jusqu'à la fin de la vidéo. Je sais que j'en ai perdu minimum 60%. Ceux qui n'ont pas écouté jusqu'à la fin, c'est simple. Vous êtes ceux qui ne vont pas réussir à devenir riches grâce à la compagnie Ripple et leur token XRP, par exemple. Et que c'est ceux aussi qui vont vendre le XRP quand il va arriver à 1$ et qui vont pleurer plus tard quand il va coûter dans les 3-4 chiffres. Ceux qui ont écouté jusqu'à la fin, bravo, vous êtes des mains de diamants et vous êtes prêts à investir votre temps aisément dans des trucs que je trouve importants à écouter qui vont vous faire renforcer votre mental. En quoi que Ripple, ce n'est pas une petite compagnie et que vous êtes dans la bonne compagnie pour devenir financièrement libre un jour ou l'autre. Alors, merci de m'avoir écouté et je vous dis à la prochaine vidéo. Ciao!